The last section in these different modules of security vulnerabilities is the recon findings. And again, we're going to follow everything we've done for data, incident, and posture. That means give a brief explanation of recon and finally go ahead and inspect a small set of those findings. Again, recon, we explained it quite a bit thus far, especially in the previous sections. But at the end of the day, it simulates reconnaissance phase attacks, right? And reconnaissance phase attacks, as it is defined in the cyber kill chain, okay? It's the antigen and the recon service that are responsible for it. The inputs are domains, okay? The outputs are the recon service findings, identifying subdomains and vulnerabilities. That is, findings that contain sensitive or forbidden data that should not be present, and of course accessible over the net. Okay. The antigen triggers always the communication. It communicates domains to the recon service. It retrieves subdomains and findings from the recon service. It runs on a schedule, and please, these are the defaults yet again, right? The domains that are input that are added into the no-name platform by one of us, that is a no-name security employee, are communicated to the recon service. And on a daily basis, we're retrieving the findings and the discovered subdomains. Okay? No sensitivity, it doesn't apply in this case, and the severity is identical to everything else we discussed thus far. That is, uh, auto, auto, if sensitivity is set to auto, the no-name platform is going to inspect the context before we set the severity. Now I want to mention that this is less true for the recon service because the sensitivity is usually fixed, right? It is fixed. So there isn't much to inspect in the recon service before we set a sensitivity. Okay? All right. So as again, case in point, uh, default severity is set to medium. There's nothing else to inspect. This is called directory listing exposes server resources. I started working for an e-commerce company back, my very first e-commerce company was back in 1999. I'm dating myself, right? I started my career in 94, 95. But the very first thing we used to do when we were setting up a web server was remove access to the server folders. There's a configuration. I know I used to use the Apache HTTPD server back in the day. Pretty much, it used to be a configuration setting. Turn it off. Nobody can access now your folders, right? What do I mean by that? Well, you understand that your browser, if you type file colon slash slash, you're able to access the folder structure of your disk, right? Uh, the browser understands this type of protocol as well. And then you can drill down, you can go to your home folder, you can see all that stuff. Now consider the same exact behavior that I'm illustrating right here on my disk being done on your web browser, right? So you're able to see pretty much all the underlying uh, file structure. I don't know, you may have logs, you may have configuration files for your application, your code of your application, right? If you use something that is interpreted, right? Uh, some, I don't know, dumps of errors, right? All of that gives a massive amount of information to an attacker, right? This is one of the worst issues, recon findings you can do. I don't know why the severity is medium. I will put it to high, critical. But then again, I'm not the security expert, right? Again, I'm a formal developer. I'm not a security expert. Okay, so if you forget to configure your web server the right way and you expose your directory, recon service is going to find it and it's going to report it to you. Okay, going to report it to your security professionals. And now they will come and they'll try to see why this is happening. Okay. By the way, that what happened is going to tell you the host name. The evidence is going to have a link that's going to take you directly to the server, right? So indisputable evidence, like I was talking about earlier on. And again, you need to modify the configuration, disable the directory listing. And this type of pattern that you see right here, we scan, we find information, and we report it back repeats when it comes to recon findings. So here's two more. Here's the organization-related GitHub and the third-party GitHub repository. Very similar, right? Very similar. It's very easy to forget or misconfigure your GitHub repository, and instead of setting it to private, make it public, right? It happened the other day, right? One of our customers, we discovered because of Recon that, hey, you had a public GitHub repository that was exposing code, it was exposing client IDs, secrets, tokens, and so on, right? Keys, and so on, right? Oh, well, at least this time it's high, right? The default severity is high. So in this case, it relates specifically to the organization. Let me give you an example. My organization has a GitHub repository, right? Work related, and we forget to mark it as private. It's accessible to the internet, right? So that's when we trigger this type of security vulnerability. The next one is when a third party, that means somebody related to your organization, exposes information. For example, I am a third party to no name security. I have my own GitHub repositories, right? What if I expose sensitive or forbidden data from my repository? It may be related to work, it may not be related to work. Better safe than sorry, right? So the recon service, if it finds anything, it's going to let us know. Next thing is WordPress. I don't know, it's used to be a blog server back in the day, like early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. Nowadays, pretty much it's a content management server. That's what WordPress is. And I don't know why, but WordPress users, the users API, right? Usually it works without any authentication, right? So if you forgot to set it up, you install WordPress and you forget to set it up with authenticating the user's API, well, that's a problem, right? So the no-name platform, the recon service, is going to be able to detect all that and report it back to you. Okay, it's a well-known problem in WordPress. In fact, if you go back to the finding policies and you sort, actually we can do better than that. Can I group by? Oh wow, I cannot group by right here. Usually I can group by, but in this case I can't. That's okay, no big deal. If you look at all the recon vulnerabilities, you will see that they're pretty straightforward, right? API documentation leakage, code snippet leaks sensitive or forbidden data. So you have somewhere we detected the code snippet that contains client IDs, client secrets, or you have a course set up the wrong way. Cross-origin resource sharing. For those of you who do web development, you should be fairly familiar, right? Or WAF CDN bypass allows direct access to a protected API, right? Pretty straightforward, right? And there's quite a few of these, right? Look, quite a few, dozens and dozens. Okay, back to the slides very quickly. Yeah, so that's your WordPress. And with this, we have concluded Recon. Pretty straightforward, like Posture.